Hi, my name is Maria. The majority of my life, I was just full of energy and vivacious and outgoing, a hard worker, a great mom. I've heard that many times. So I did commercial modeling, fitting work for plus sizes, and I was probably a size 14 and lost a tremendous amount of weight.
Just to give each other compliments and praise one another is such a great way to uplift other women and give them the confidence that sometimes we lack. Yeah. Women together are powerful.
For me, I was a full figured woman. I was pretty curvy and I lost every ounce of muscle in my body. I completely was just flab, lost everything. Everything anyone knew me by or identified me by physically was gone. And so it was just really embarrassing, humility. It's just a very humbling experience to be in. In 2020, we were doing this major move from Long Island to upstate New York. And it was during the move when I started feeling really sick and was told to take, it was during COVID actually. And it was just so unexpected. And I did a telehealth appointment with a doctor, and they just told me to take Pepsid. And so I took that, and that's kind of where the symptoms started. I didn't have acid reflux, so it didn't make any sense. But because we were in the process of moving, I just kind of let it go. When we finally made the move, that's when I started calling around for doctors in the area. And at that point, people were not taking new patients because of COVID. And so I ended up going to urgent care, and they were able to get an emergency endoscopy done for me, thankfully. And once I had that endoscopy, is when the doctor instantly knew something was wrong. And honestly, I had never suspected that it was cancer. And the doctor had said, when you come in to your follow up appointment, bring your husband with you. And I didn't even think at that point anything was wrong. My husband is the one that has suspected. Why do I have to go? And so finally, I went. But I was losing a tremendous amount of weight very quickly. I went from plus size modeling and doing work and had to maintain certain measurements, and suddenly dropped from a plus size woman to suddenly down to a size 8 instantly, or I would say in a matter of 8 weeks. The symptoms were just weight loss, chronic fatigue. I was always tired. After the endoscopy, when I woke up from the endoscopy, I woke up vomiting. So that was a sign something wasn't right. It just I just couldn't do the same things. I was sleeping a lot. My husband said I was sleeping a lot. I don't recall that because I was sleeping, obviously, but my husband said I was doing a lot of sleeping. It was very unexpected and just completely shocking. I felt confused. I didn't know what to think. I couldn't believe I couldn't believe it. It was actually on April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2021, when I was diagnosed. And I thought this was the biggest joke of my life. And my husband said, "Is this a joke? I mean, April 1st." And so, anyway, both of us were in just shock. I remember getting into the car afterwards and just having a breakdown, just crying and upset, and didn't know. I just felt lost. And so then I contacted, relatives and my family who I'm very close to. And it was just a shock to everyone. And thankfully, my family lives at MSK. And once the gastroenterologist up here gave me the diagnosis, he referred me to a surgeon in this area who wasn't confident to do the surgery. And I asked if he would transfer me or give me a referral to MSK, Memorial Sloan Kettering. And so he did, thankfully. And that's when they looked into it further. They did a diagnostic laparoscopic procedure to find out how advanced the cancer was. And so it was advanced, although I recall them telling me that it was in the middle range. But when I saw the paperwork and the documents, it said advanced cancer. When I looked into it, I found out that it's not very common in the US, but it is common worldwide, just not as common. And so that's kind of why I wanted the referral to Memorial Sloan, because it was really important for me to have doctors that dealt with this type of thing on a regular basis. I did get a second opinion, but it wasn't right away, actually. I was later on diagnosed with incurable gastric cancer because they were unable to see through the lining of the abdomen with the PET scan or CT scans. At that time, I was so sick, I didn't really pay too much mind to all the details, but I remember them saying they weren't able to see through the CT scan. And so I had a reoccurrence. And that's when I went for a second opinion to Dana-Farber in Boston. I was really leaning more on the doctors and their professionalism and their knowledge because I'd never been in a situation like that. And I recall when I went into the facility, I was dying. I was dying. I wasn't eating. I couldn't hold anything down. And I remember just being slumped over. So just making decisions like that, I really left it in the doctor's hands. And although they did give me options and they were very good about that, they spoke about the options and what we could do, and immunotherapy being one of them, but that was the last resort. I did chemotherapy for the first 3 months. I experienced nausea, fatigue, just weakness. I was just very weak at that time. But as far as nausea, I did a lot of eating. I probably ate every couple of hours. And I know for some people, they're not able to hold the food down, but I was able to do it and it helped me with the nausea. And I just ate small amounts throughout the day and that helped me with the nausea. Um, Another thing I did, I didn't drink, but I used a mouthwash with salt and baking soda 3 times a day to avoid any kind of cold sores, because those were also possible side effects for me through chemo. And I never got a cold sore, thankfully. Um, so I was just very active every day, regardless of how I felt. And I made sure to get out of bed every day. I got up, I even put my makeup on every day, which is crazy. And I walked every day. I was so weak, but I walked on a treadmill every day. And and I would sing every day. I would walk, sing. There were just a bunch of things that I did just to feel good, to get myself out of that headspace of what was going on and how I was feeling. And anything that brought me some kind of joy is what I did. And for me, it was, my faith and praising and worshiping and stuff like that. I hadn't been diagnosed yet with incurable gastric cancer. So the first 3 months, the chemo worked. All the nodules had shrunk. So they were very minimal. They were able to get the reason why I wasn't able to hold anything down is because there was that one of the tumors was blocking the small intestine, where you have the bend on the lower part of your stomach. What is it called? The incisora or something like that. So anyway, it's where the lower abdomen bends. And so I wasn't able to digest. So they were able to remove all that, but that was extending out of the stomach. So they were questioning um, if it had gone outside the abdomen area. That's why they did the diagnostic laparoscopic procedure. I just count my blessings because after surgery, it was done laparoscopically, first off. It was all done laparoscopically. And I had 8 incisions on my abdomen. And I came out of there and I was still able to walk. And I really contribute this to already that I was already walking every day because I knew I was going into surgery. So I was able to walk. I didn't experience much pain. And leaving the hospital was really just heartbreaking to me because I just felt like I got through something so difficult. And on the floor, on each floor, it was designated for that particular type of cancer. So I knew everyone on that floor was experiencing gastric cancer and having hard times eating and walking and feeling nauseous. And I just remember getting up and walking and not having much pain. And um, thank God for that because I can't explain why. And that's why I'm all about faith and God, really. But so I just thank God that I was able to walk away. But that was really a devastating, a heartbreaking moment to leave, knowing that everyone else was still there and knowing what they were going through was really hard. I was grateful, but yet just very sad to know all the people are going through this ugly disease. Plan was to finish the last 3 months of chemo upstate New York. And so that's what I did. I went to this place upstate and I had a reoccurrence. Now I was using the same exact treatment, FLOTS, here, upstate New York, that I was using at MSK, but I had a reoccurrence. So it didn't make any sense that the FLOTS would shrink all these nodules. I just remember having an amazing holiday because I thought I was scot-free. I thought no more cancer. Thank God I was past it. And then suddenly I had a reoccurrence. And once I had that reoccurrence, I just felt like it was just never going to end at that point. Um, so I went back to MSK because I just felt I needed to go back to where there were professionals that knew more about the disease. And I thought that maybe it had something to do with the treatment, the chemo that was being used here versus the chemo down there because it had worked so perfectly the first time. So to me, it didn't make any sense that I would develop something after it had just shrunk all my tumors. So I went back to MSK and I just felt a lot of regret because I had made that decision to come up here after surgery. So that was a big regret for me. So I went back to MSK, and at that point, I was diagnosed. They told me it's stage 4, it's incurable. So I had 3 other recurrences. And that's when, because we were avoiding the immunotherapy, I ended up going into radiation. So I did chemo again. It was a different type of chemo. I had a reaction to, I think there was about 3 different chemos I had tried after that. I did have a reaction in front of my daughter, which was really devastating and heartbreaking because she was only 20 at that time, and she just took that very hard. And got past that, and they found a chemo that was working. And then I had a reoccurrence again, and then they figured with that one tumor that they would be able to use radiation. And then I did radiation in September of 2022. Okay, so now I'm in radiation. I went to New York City for the radiation. Um, and it worked. The radiation worked. So that one nodule now was gone. But then I had another reoccurrence. After September 2022, obviously we had to hold out because it takes time for the radiation to work, to know if it's working. So I had a few follow ups and eventually it worked. So I was on another chemo through that process and just waiting out to see how the radiation is going to work, and it worked. But then I had another reoccurrence, and they found a tumor that was adjacent to the mesenteric vein, and the mesenteric vein is a life vein. So they couldn't do surgery, which was devastating to me because I thought they could just go right in and remove it. So they did radiation on that in 2023. A year later, September 2023, and it shrunk. And so now what they're seeing is this little tiny nodule still adjacent to the mesenteric vein, but not, there's no signs or evidence of cancer at this point. It could be scar tissue. They don't know because it's very small. It's how they described it was the size of the tip of your finger, very small, and it could just be scar tissue. So if they've done 6 CT scans, every scan has come back clear, just showing this little tiny mass. And it has grown a little bit, but again, that could be also inflammation, is what they're saying. And it's very tiny. So they can't really at this point do a biopsy because it's so tiny. And that's where I'm at now. So 6 CT scans, 4 tumor markers, and they're not seeing anything right now. So I'm just praying that it just is scar tissue and it's just, there's nothing that can be done at this point. I think it's quite often actually that the fear of a reoccurrence, it can consume you sometimes. So I just I pray. I do. I pray about it. And that's what gets me through it. But every time I get that scan and I hear everything is good, everything looks good, it just brings me a tremendous amount of happiness and joy, thank God. My biggest challenge is not feeling like myself. Cancer has really taken a big part of my life from me as far as the activities I'm able to do. I'm not the same person. I used to have a ton of energy. I could do everything at once, like I could multitask. So I'm not really able to I have to pace myself now. And I guess that's one of the biggest issues is I just feel like I lost a big part of myself in that because I used to take so much pride in how much I could do. I feel like I'm getting better and my body is able to take in some nutrients because I do have some of my stomach at this point, but I still don't feel like myself. I don't think I'll ever be like I used to be. And I feel like, there's another part of me where, we identify ourselves so much by what we look like, losing our hair and stuff like that. And so thankfully I've gotten my hair back. So I'm coming out of it now, but for me, it's more of a physical thing, an energy, the fatigue, the energy, not being able to do all the same things I once did. I have a very short time span in what I can do and what I'm capable of doing. And so sometimes I won't participate in certain things. And I'm home a lot, to be honest. So I'm not the extrovert. I'm not that person that's out and about all the time anymore because my health comes first. Because without health, what do you have if you don't have your health? I did this modeling, the L'Oreal, it was a photo shoot that I did for L'Oreal, with great coverage, but I had to drive all the way downstate to New York City. And so the traveling is something I can't do anymore. So, it might come to a point where I just can't do that anymore. Although I love it, I just, I don't think I have the endurance to do something like that. Because when I stayed down there, I went the night before and I could not sleep. I was just tired. And when I got there, I just, I somehow finagled it. I was able to get through it, but honestly, it was a struggle. And so I don't think it's something I can continue, although I would love to. So now it's just about pursuing things that I can fit into my lifestyle. My family and my community, my church community. And we made this move. And so when we made this move, it was when I was feeling really sick. And the church has just taken me in and prayed over me and just welcomed me with open arms. They're just a loving, kind community. And so that really helped me tremendously. I joined the prayer team. They just, I was praying for others, and it was just really interesting how that worked out. And, but I have to say, my family played a really big role in the beginning of this journey because I was staying in Westchester, and my daughter was ending it was her last year to receive her BA, and she ended up um, putting both of her she ended up bringing both her semesters together and just doing it from home. And because of COVID, she was able to take online classes and finish up. And so she was able to graduate. She went to downstate to my parents' house with me. So it was my mother, my father, my daughter, and my sister who helped tremendously down there. So my sister was doing the traveling. She was taking me back and forth because I couldn't drive at that time. I was so weak. I couldn't even hold my body up. My body was just, I was completely hunched for the longest time and still have problems with posture. But so my sister did the driving, my daughter did the laundry, my mom did the cooking for me. So everyone kind of pitched in, and it was just so beautiful. And honestly, I never felt so loved. And it was sometimes the worst things in our lives can sometimes be a blessing in disguise, because it teaches us so many things that we maybe have taken for granted. For me, prayer was one of the things that got me through it. I prayed. I even I joined the prayer team, like I said earlier. I joined the prayer team. I had the church community. Um, my faith got me through it emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I was just one of those people. I was not a spiritual person whatsoever. Um, Very uninterested in that part of my life. And just, it's interesting that your spiritual life can really have an impact on your physical body and how you're thinking and how you're feeling and how you receive things and how you perceive things. It's really interesting how that works. But thankfully, to prayer, walking and praising, I was singing to God. And that really got me through it. Self advocacy is extremely important. I wasn't making the choices at the very end. I allowed the doctors, but I think it's important to know what's going on. I mean, I was so sick with chemo and the surgery. I mean, the chemo kept me so weak, and even my memory and just my thought process was not the same, and still isn't to this day. But I think it's very important that you at least understand what's going on, have questions, seek the answers, get the answers you need, and be sure that you're doing what's right, because no one else is going to do it for you. Stay strong, persevere through it. I would say pray. Be hopeful. Prayer brings on hope. You need that hope to keep going. Do what you love and find a way to get out of bed every day and stay active as much as possible. Stay active. I think it's very important for me, I would wake up every morning. I would cook my own meals. I was very independent, even though I was feeling so weak. Not in the very beginning, my parents did that, but my mom did that. But once I was able to, it's very important to stay active.